my best kind of show notes because we didn't touch one of them, not even one of them. I'm not sure which one is Paul Rudd and which one is Lane Green.
Final card here is the ultimate outcome.
Today is Take Your Dog to Work Day.
Oh, like Scooby-Doo.
Yeah. Without further ado, his debut.
Sweet Caroline.
Everybody say hello to Sammy. Is that not good?
I'm just pausing so that you just are at the front of your screen.
I'm so enormously flattered.
Branding is not a bad blind date.
I'm gonna have to take a picture of this.
No, this is agape. This is love.
I really enjoyed this. You did do your homework. You asked great questions.
I'm flattered. Thank you. You just made my day.
Look at you! You are insane.
How did I do that?
You're
how
insane.
Did I do that?
You're insane.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Corona TV. It is Tuesday, September 15th, and I hope you are well. I am in one of the greatest restaurants in the whole world right now, and you're going to find out more about exactly where I am. Does anyone actually know where I am? If so, let me know in the comments. I'd be curious if you actually know where I am. And if you are Brazilian, then you're cheating. So that's all I'm going to say. So it'd be interesting to see if you actually know where I am. I will reveal shortly. Today is National IT Professionals Day. So I want to just wish you a happy day if you are in IT. Very interesting time to be in IT, no doubt. The amount of invention and reinvention and all of the scrambling and adaptation that has had to take place in terms of allowing people to work virtually and remote. I would stop short to say IT professionals are essential workers, but you know what? Screw that. I think IT professionals are essential workers when it's come to, keeping people connected and collaborating and figuring out how to survive and thrive in these crazy, turbulent times we're living in. So just a quick recap. Yesterday, Equal Man, what a great day, what a great session. The after show is actually amazing, where I actually summarized the after show into 1 minute for the Corona Bite, which I do for those of you that are new to the show. I summarized the entire show in 1 minute, and it's generally just a sound bite or a clip. And in the actual, I got to stop for a second. Tom is right. Figuera Rubiat. Let's see how well, he's, so Bob's in the background looking and he's going, meaning like you didn't bastardize it or butcher it. So that's good. I'll also have what he's having. But in this Corona Bite, which was actually taken from the Zoom after show, which you can join after this show. So after every one of our shows is a Zoom after show where you can actually become part of the show. Is this not confusing? Because I'm confused. But the bottom line is right now you're sitting back, you're watching me, you're watching my guest and I interact. But afterwards you can actually ask them questions and me and participate. But anyway, in that Corona Bite, we discussed, and this is in 1 minute with very little editing, precrastination, cowboy/cowgirl scheduling, finding your power hour in terms of a set time every day for you to focus and be your most productive, and then the differences between, finding out if you are a robin, an eagle, or a night owl, which was really quite fascinating. And that all came from just one session in our after show. Anyway, tomorrow, the CMO, Mr. Jeffrey Hazlett, Brittany Hodak on Thursday, and finally Take 4, Jamal Mashburn. And I will let you know, I haven't heard back from him this week, but I am holding out for a hero. But today my hero is Bob Wollheim. And I'm going to give you his bio later, and also a little bit of context in terms of how we know each other. But I'm so happy to be reconnecting with him after a few years, actually. birthdays, a bunch of them. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to all of you. Happy birthday to Scott Witt and Julie Rome, Len Kendall. Happy birthday to you. And then on LinkedIn as well, happy birthday to all of my LinkedIn friends, contacts, Romans, friends, countrymen, Bailey Hancock. Have a great day, guys. Well, let's get straight into our seated soliloquy. And it is called Figuera. And the reveal, as you guys have seen, is, well, now you know what it is, but do you know what it is, or why it is, or how it is? You know where I am. I'm in a restaurant with a giant tree. Let me tell you a little bit more. But first of all, let me, set the scene. These days, I don't get to travel much, unless, of course, you count walking downstairs to get a cup of coffee in the morning, or, of course, my runs around the neighborhood. So instead, I want to reminisce with you today about the many places I've visited on my business travels. Let's start off with Brazil. And you know what? Let's talk about a personal trip to Rio de Janeiro and attending Carnival. It was actually a business connection, kind of. It was thanks to my business relationship, my clients at AB InBev and their sponsorship of the festival. My wife and I stayed in a wonderful area called Barra. And yes, I did wear the famous Brazilian men's swimming trunks called sunga. I think that's the right name for it. I'm not sure I've ever been that self-conscious, although I kind of lost my inhibitions once I was on the beach, surrounded by other men that, weren't as in, let's just say they weren't in as good shape as I was, and I certainly was not in good shape. Carnival at the Brahma Suite was incredible. And although we didn't catch a glimpse of the celebrities that dropped in, like Megan Fox or Neymar, people did tell me that Joseph Jaffe, aka Jaffe Juice, was there as well, but I didn't see him. Allegedly he was there. The remainder of my trips to Brazil, though, were all business trips, and to the jungle, actually the concrete Amazon that is Sao Paulo. On more than one occasion, I visited the famous A Figueira Rubaiyat restaurant, which is what you see in the background. The restaurant is a Michelin restaurant, and the food is incredible. I'll always remember their famous whole fish baked in salt crust, but that's not the main attraction of the restaurant. For those that have been there, of course, I'm talking about the magnificent 100-year-old Bengal fig tree, a tourist attraction in of itself. The entire restaurant has seemingly been built around the tree, and it's a marvel to witness how the branches and majestic crown weave through the walls and a glass ceiling that pay homage to this natural centurion. They've literally built the walls around the branches. During the age of COVID, it's actually a powerful metaphor of resilience, longevity, and how obstacles viewed with a unique perspective are, like Angus Nelson said in a previous episode of Corona TV, a tribute to humility itself. Or using a different analogy from nature, the water does not beat down the giant rock that stands in its way in the middle of the river. Rather, it goes around it. And over time, and with tremendous calm and patience, reduces it to nothing but sand. And I thought that was a really nice way to kind of set the scene and think about how just this innocuous trip to a restaurant could in fact represent the kind of superpowers that we need to survive and thrive and cope during these tough times. Well, now it's time to introduce my guest. Bob Wollheim is an internet pioneer. He really is an internet pioneer in Brazil and a seasoned entrepreneur. He's the co-founder of The Next Company, an early stage investment company, and also CSO at CINT, which is a Brazilian-born global digital transformation company with 2,800 people in Brazil, the US, EMEA, APAC, where he oversees digital transformation through strategy, design, and development. He is the author of 2 books, which I won't pronounce for fear of absolutely butchering them even more. So instead, I think it would be a lot better just to bring him on, and when the time is right, he can introduce his books. Welcome to the show, my friend. Good to see you, Bob.
Pleasure to be here, Joe.
So I should say, boa tarde.
Boa tarde para você também.
Como estás?
Muito bem.
Yeah, I love Portuguese. And as you may remember, I started my career, well, actually out of college, working for a Portuguese chain called Nando's. And so generally all of my Portuguese words are swear words, and body parts of both males and females, genitalia, just to be more specific. We don't
need to go there, right?
No, we don't. No, we don't. Tom says some of the nicest people I've ever met were Brazilians. In 4th grade, I chose Brazil for my year-long project. And Amy is here. She said, "This is how my children get everything they've asked for, like water reducing a boulder." So they wear you down. So they are water, and you are the rock. But you are also a rock, Amy, in the sense that you are strong and you are resolute and you are powerful as well. And of course, my mom is here, so it's good to see you. And so is Joey Dumont. So it's good to see everybody here. And Steve is here. He said the Apple event is over. Steve, should we please tell us in the comments, what did they announce? Is the new iPhone coming out? Bob, have you been following?
No.
Because who cares about Apple? You're on Corona TV with me, right?
Right. Much more important, right? Couldn't pay attention to Apple today.
So, all right. So now let's get back into the restaurant. Bob, tell us your story. Because you really are, in Brazil, you are one of the most recognized and respected innovators and truly, an OG when it comes to the internet.
Yeah, thanks for that. Very happy to be here, Joe, to meet you again and to have good memories of the Figueira Rubaiá restaurant, which I think we had at lunch there together, right?
Yeah, for sure.
We did, right? We did, yeah. So I think you've been very, very kind with all the comments you made about me. But there's one thing that I would like to say to start that conversation is that I discovered, in a deep self-knowledge program that I initiated last year. It's been a long life journey, but I started more deeply, last year, that I'm a more into a creative guy, creative person than an entrepreneur myself or innovator myself, right? So curiosity and creativity are things that are always happening to me. And what I found out is that, this pioneering thing that you mentioned is around the curiosity to discover the new stuff, not be afraid of the unknown, but not being afraid of the blank, the white pages, without anything. And in the early days of the internet, I made a trip to the US and I found something in a hotel that was a little early days of the commercial internet working out. And I said, this is interesting. This is very interesting. I don't know nothing about this, but I'll start something around that in Brazil. And that's the way it all started. And my curiosity, keeps, flowing. Thanks God or whatever, and brings me here to continue my journey on curiosity and some entrepreneurship, but more recently as an investor than an entrepreneur myself, and also bringing that curiosity and creativity to a company like CI&T.
So it's actually interesting because you're defining yourself by your traits rather than by a title or a category, right? So it's not. You could be called an innovator, you could be called an entrepreneur, you could be called an investor, but instead you define yourself based on creativity and curiosity. They are your North Star that steer you And I think by inference, you could be something else in a year or 2 years or 5 years, but you'd still be driven and powered by curiosity and creativity.
Yeah, totally right. And understanding that was a big release and a big peace moment for myself. That when I used other, titles or designations for myself, like entrepreneur, it put a lot of pressure on a lot of things that I did not have. I did not have the excitement. I did not have the energy. But when I understood, my inner self there around creativity, everything was much more clear and easier for me to deal with those things that I want.
Well, I have a confession to make, which I've never told you. But so we met. I was, running Evolution, and we were working on mobile futures, which became Shopper Futures. And we brought the entire program to Brazil, right, to Sao Paulo. And I remember visiting the agency or the company that you worked at. And this is what we saw. Remember, there was a demo. There was a 3D printing demo taking place. But it was actually I don't know if I ever told you this, but it was the first time that I'd ever actually seen 3D printing in action. And
really?
Yeah, and why that's relevant is because, a lot of us, we fake it till we make it.
Right.
We talk about the stuff. Hey, what's your point of view, Joseph, on AI? What's your point of view on 3D printing? What's your point of view on QR codes or whatever the hell, Right. But I never actually, I had a point of view on 3D printing. Well, if we could 3D print food and organs and blah, 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 and skin, but I'd never actually seen it. And watching it in action, it was like observing like a miracle, the miracle of creation, because that's what it was.
Fantastic. And it's fantastic to hear that, and it's fantastic that it happened in Brazil, right?
Of course, and why wouldn't it? Why wouldn't it? All right, so I want to take a little step back and set the scene in a little bit more of a somber or sobering light, which is, you and I have the dubious displeasure of both living in countries that have unfortunately, been at the wrong end of the COVID charts, both in terms of cases and deaths, and certainly, we don't need to get political unless you want to, because on this show anything goes. But I did want to actually ask you, first of all, how are you? How are you doing? How is your family? And then I would love to hear an update on how things are in Brazil from someone who's actually there. We're up to here right now in the US in terms of dealing with our own problems, and we get little glimpses from different countries. But I want to actually kind of talk to someone who's there and find out how Brazil is coping.
Right. So thank you. All good with me and family. We moved out of Sao Paulo. We're in Ilhabela, beautiful island, where we had a weekend house, and now we're living here. In terms of the country, things are, as you said, they're not good, and I think that relates, in my understanding, to two things. And I'm sure it's not just a coincidence that two big countries, and entrepreneurial and creative countries like United States and Brazil, are in similar situations, right? So this moment, I think, requires more, community thinking, more, collective thinking, and we are more into like the entrepreneurial, go crazy, mindset that I think is very similar to the U.S. But not going political, but just a little bit. I think we have something in common also. That is lack of real leaders, right? Our president here and your president in the United States, they're just nuts, right? So, and that's not driving us, to good places, not at all. Nowadays, it's so strange that a lot of people, I don't know if that's happening in the US, but a lot of people just consider that the COVID, the virus is out. and they're away, they're out, they are in restaurants, they're traveling, they are going to the beach. Rio de Janeiro, where you've been, and Baja, it's really crowded every weekend. So they understood that for the lack of a leader that tell too many lies and doesn't really guide us to anywhere. So they just say, we're not going to consider that leader anywhere anyway. So let's do whatever we think, which is kind of crazy. And I think there's a part of the population that is really, they don't care. They're out there taking their life, normally. And the other probably, the other part, I'm not saying if it's half or not, but I think a big amount, two sides, they're just like, what's going on with these people? They really don't care. They don't see the news. They don't, take care of themselves. They don't use masks. They don't, people are just thinking, what's going on, right? So, because there are so many people out there in the beaches, in the streets, in the restaurants, right? So, hard to say what will come out of that, And there is a question that I've been making myself, and I've been reading a little bit. I'm not, studying that profoundly, but just reading a little bit. That maybe it doesn't change at the end of the process. After a few maybe months or years, the statistics will show more or less the same number. I'm not suggesting that, and I'm in the group that I'm staying at home. I'm taking care of myself. I'm using, masks and everything else here. Like this one is it's a beautiful one, right? So I'm in the group that is taking care of, my family and myself. But I don't know. It's hard to tell, but it's kind of a very tense, a bizarre moment. But I think the lack of leadership, real leadership, it's really making us go crazy, go nuts, and people don't follow anyone, so they just follow their guts.
I was thinking, let's just talk briefly about leadership. It seems like when you have a very powerful leader, right? Whether it's the leader of a team, a sports team, right? Whether it's the leader of a country, a leader of a company, that there are going to be people that blindly follow them, and then there are going to be people that maybe blindly reject them. So you have a polarizing, the more polarizing they are, the more polarizing their followers are. And we all talk about the failure of leadership but we don't really talk about powerful leaders. We don't really talk about who has done an exceptional job, globally with respect to COVID. It's funny because when we think about the real heroes, A, they're female, most of them, if not all of them, but B, it's not about them. So you don't see the glorification of, the Prime Minister of New Zealand. You see when the collective wins, then everybody wins, and when the collective loses, then everybody loses, and that's really where leadership should be, which is facilitating, but not having to be a bottleneck. Going back to the rock in the river, a leader should not be the rock that blocks the river.
Right, you're absolutely right, and I think in the beginning you were referring to probably the old style leader, right? Either you love him or her, or you hate him or her, right? And the new type of leader is more into a guide, right? Someone that will collectively design a true north, not ask everyone to go this direction or that direction, right? So just show a path and negotiate and talk and understand that after some talking, that's the right path to go, and let's go there. And it's interesting that you raised that in both, good examples, like Germany is another example. These are female leaders, right? So there's something behind that, and I think as men, we need to be able to put out more of our female side, and then that's been blocked since we are born, right? So, and I think we should be able to.
Yeah, I was just going to say it basically comes down to what society has ingrained or indoctrinated or told us or taught us is the way things are. And as you said, just the very simple shift from, autocratic to the idea of a Sherpa, a guide. Like a parent, you don't want to have to dictate. You don't want to have to, also just step out the way. You just want to be able to guide, just sometimes course correct a little bit. I want to ask you one more question about leadership as we're discussing this, which is, I'm thinking to myself, I wonder if the reason why it's become so difficult is because actually, ironically, social media and the access to information and data and channels where everybody has an opinion, where everybody has a point of view. I guess what I'm trying to say is, if this were 100 years ago, well, you know what? I'm thinking to myself, 100 years ago, the Spanish flu, the world kind of made the same mistake, if not worse. So I've almost answered my question, but my point of view is, if this were 20 years ago, would the world fall in line better and be more, cohesive and more singular in terms of following, the trickle down effect then? Because in a way, we're all just doing this at the moment.
I don't think so. I think it's not about, there's no change that people have an opinion. We always had, people always had opinions.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have distribution, right? That's just the difference. And it becomes more complicated because it's more distributed, right? So everyone has a voice. The opinion was there already, right? So it looks more transparent, it looks more complicated and complex, but it's basically the same nature, and I think when you go to, as you said in the question, when we look backwards to the previous big pandemic, it was quite the same reactions, right, without the internet being there, right? So, and also to your question, I think there's something interesting that I've been saying, that the social media it's a back to the past mode. It's done by technology, obviously. It's done in the future moment, obviously, right, with technology. But it brings us back to the cave moment, where everyone knew everything about everyone. Everyone knew who was having sex with others, and everything. Who were looking for food and who was just resting the whole day. Everyone knew everything in the cave, and that's the social, way we live. Now it became distributed globally, and I understand that in a couple of years we're going to look back at that and say thanks that happened, because it's much more transparent. We understand much more who we are. We understand much more who are the people around us. It hurts. It's very extreme nowadays, but I think after some time it will get adjusted. Our kids, for instance, they've been born with that, so they will know much more than we know about that, and they will understand from the very early moments of their lives that everything is public, everything is out there. So whatever you do, people will know, right? So I think at the end of some time, probably 2 decades or more, it will be a good thing. That's my point of view, right? So, but I don't disagree that it's very aggressive at this moment and very polarized also. But it was always like that. But it was restricted to a bar, to a house, or to a school, or to a library before, right?
It's very interesting how you have the perspective of going all the way back to the caves, right? But then thinking, if we fast forward ourselves into fling ourselves into the future and look back on this moment, we may actually see things very differently, or things that maybe didn't make sense now will make sense in the near future.
Yeah. I totally agree. I did an exercise once that I was given a class, and I asked for someone's name. And during the lunchtime, I went into the internet and searched for that person without hacking anything. And I don't have that ability. I just searched. And when they came back, was young guys from a telco in Brazil. I told the story, So you're, formerly you lived in that little town outside Sao Paulo. Then you studied veterinarian. Then you went to the U.S. for exchange program, and then you did that. And then you came to work here. You're dating this girl, and then. By you have a hobby that you're a musician, and that's your latest music, and I played the music, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, I didn't know about that." There were a few colleagues, right, from the same company. I didn't know he played music. I have never heard. He never told me. And I said, and they were like, "Did you hack him?" I said, No. He's telling his story, but it's fragmented on the web, on the internet, right? So I just did a little search and put them all together for the same moment, right? It was all fragmented there, but he's giving all his DNA, we might say, on the web, and in different social media tools and different platforms, but it's all there, and it's much more transparent than just the story that he will tell me. I'm this or that, and I've done that.
It's interesting.
It's more human. If you think, it's more human, because we have the personas. We have a persona for being a father, for being a son, for being a husband or a wife, or and we use those personas very well in live moments and Figueira Rubaiá in our restaurant, right? On the web, we do both. We use very well. We can create a persona on Instagram that is always traveling, beautiful. But when you connect to all the personas on different platforms for the same person, it's all transparent. You read everything. You will, I can tell you who you like, who you don't. Just checking out everything that you've posted in the last 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, I mean, it's all out there, right? In full disclosure, as Martin Albarda would call it. But I think it does lend itself to this idea of the total view of the customer, and we still don't have that. Even companies haven't figured out how to just unite and unify all the channels that they actually connect with their customer. So across email and Twitter and in person and and telephone, etc. And so I love this conversation about distribution, fragmented distribution, and then the aggregation of that. But let's before, there's so many things that I know you want to talk about. But for me, what's so interesting about these two fun facts with you is these are not crazy things in the past. These are things that are actually happening to you right now. And so you alluded to the fact that you picked up and you've moved to Ilhabela. Is that how you pronounce it?
Ilhabela. Yeah.
Ilhabela. And this is actually your work. This is your workplace right now. There's your ring light, for your streaming. Is that where you are right now, actually?
No, it's a cold day today. I just came inside. It was raining, so I thought it would be too much noise because of the rain. But that's my place, and that's my wife working there.
Hi, Bia.
That's just a picture, but yes. And also where I am, I built a little studio here, like as type of my little Corona TV here, I'm doing a lot of lives for CINT and talking to a lot of interesting people around the world. So I just built that inside a room here. But yeah, it's all right.
No, so I'm going to segue to item number 2, which is equally interesting, if not more. And I'll let you set this up. But there is your VW bus, and it says the name is towards my grandfather. This is like your grandfather was a Norwegian adventurer who went to there's too much stuff that's interesting there. So I assume the bus is part of your adventure now.
Absolutely. That was something that I started 4 years ago. I bought that the last edition. It's called last edition. The last ones that were produced here in Brazil, numbered 1,200 special edition combis, the way they are called here in Brazil, and I prepared it for trips. It's not a motorhome; it's a travel home. Just a big bed in the back and a refrigerator, small refrigerator, so we can have fun. And it's named after my grandfather. There was a big, my best friend and a big adventurer, Norwegian, Mr. Jens. And we've been doing a lot of trips, to Chile, Argentina, Uruguay, around Brazil. And now the Volkswagen bus is stopped here at Ilhabela. And once in a while, we miss so much that me and my son, Nico, who is 6, we go just to sleep here in the backyard, inside the Volkswagen bus, just to have the feeling. And you know what? I was so excited the other day because we got inside the combi, late at, in the afternoon, just early night. And Nico got so excited, like we were in Chile or Argentina or on a big trip, that excitement came to me, and I had a beautiful night with her. Just because feeling the excitement of being traveling, but being here in the backyard, it's our mind, right? So, what is the big difference for me to sleep in a big, beautiful mountain in Chile that I did 4 years ago with him without seeing anything, in a big, beautiful night? I was there, but I was imagining being there. And when I was here in the backyard, sleeping in the combi with him, imagining that we were having fun, we had fun. That's so interesting.
It is, and previous guest Piers Fawkes has decided to become a nomad, and Jeremiah Oyang bought himself an Airstream. You're doing both. You're living the VW nomadic lifestyle, but I think it's just great for people that are watching because you guys are doing it, right? You're saying during these incredibly unsettling moments where the world is in pain and going through all this change, sometimes the best thing to do is, why prolong the pain? Why run towards the pain? Move away from the pain and find your Ilhabela and find your VW and create or recreate maybe your own borough or whatever the case may be. Maybe that's the only thing that keeps us sane right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the invitation is out there for everyone. And obviously, we have to respect the conditions. And some people are, suffering a lot. Some entrepreneurs are, their businesses are dying. And we have to recognize that. It's not to be naive and not to understand that there are people suffering. But at the same time, I think there is an invitation for change, and there is an invitation for people to accept, old dreams and, old desires and go for them.
Well, we're going to, I asked you what you wanted to chat about, and so fascinated by the things you did want to talk about. Let's start off with the subject of change. And of course, if there's anyone that we've met that doesn't like change, it's the big, large, lethargic corporation that is built to suck. So I know the first thing you wanted to talk about, and I love this topic, which is you said, digital transformation should just stop being a tagline, a throwaway, lip service, superficial, and become like an imperative. But then I said to you before, I said, but Bob, let's just be clear. What companies are calling digital transformation in the age of COVID is just digital catch-up or digital acceleration. It's not real transformation. So I'm going to hand it over to you and, maybe respond to that, but also, kind of what you want to talk about with respect to this statement.
I think it's interesting. I totally agree with you. It's just a digital catch-up, and I totally agree. But what happened, it was happening before, but it really accelerated, is that the consumer, the persons, right, the individuals, they went far ahead. They were already ahead of the companies, right? And it's so interesting. Sometimes they were totally ahead of the companies they work for, the same company, right? So people on telcos, when they were like at night having wine with us, they would be talking about things that they wouldn't do the following day at their work, right? So, but that already existed, and they were doing digital catch-up. With this, few months of COVID, it became like a huge distance because of necessity, right? We consumers, we moved so far away from the speed and the offer of most of the companies that there is a big valley between, what we do and how we behave and how companies behave, right? So, and I see some executives that they are in a kind of a crazy mood because they felt that in their own lives radically, right? That they knew it before, but not so radically, right? And now all the numbers, all the behaviors are there. They read it, they see it, they can put in beautiful PowerPoints, and everyone is seeing that. So, which again, I think, as an optimistic, as an entrepreneur who I am, I think it's an interesting and again an invitation, beautiful invitation for companies to make a leap ahead, not a catch up, right? So, and you know what? Necessity makes a lot of things happen, right? Stress makes a lot of things happen, right? So, lots of big companies, big corporations are, built to suck, as the title of your book, but some of them, surprisingly, some of them will get out of that better than they were. Not all of them. I was interviewing the other day Professor Birkinshaw. That's one of the references that I gave that wrote a book called Fast Forward. And he talks about, he's not a creative of the term adocracy, but he talks, that's it. He talks a lot about that. But I interviewed him a couple weeks ago for our CINT hosting, global hosting. And he gave us some statistics saying, that it's kind of a wrong myth that the old big corporations all die in the next 30 years. He brought data showing that's not the reality. There's a lot of transformation. There's a lot of spin-offs from those companies that survive. Some cases they become big and the original company die. But it is not all around new startups that appeared 10 years ago that dominate the Fortune 500, for instance. It was interesting provocation. And I think the COVID moment is a good invitation for, at the end of the day, executives, people, not companies, because companies are concepts. They don't exist. What exists is the people that run them, right? So, and without offices being, open now, this is even more obvious, right? So if no one is going to an office, but the company still exists, so a company is a concept, and it's based on what those people that run it, what they decide to do with that. And I've been seeing lots of interesting companies, good old ones, reshaping themselves, reshaping them leadership in a direction that will surprise us with a lot of interesting things.
I was thinking to myself that probably I can't help but think of colleges, right? Universities in particular, even schools, high schools, etc. That right now have had no choice but to move completely to distance and virtual Zoom classes. But I wonder how many of them are basically planning on going to the exact way things were when things get better versus ones that have said, you know what, we will return to some, maybe many, maybe most of the things that the way they were, but we're now going to maintain and keep some of these digital tools and virtual tools, and maybe even accelerate, for example, with VR, to kind of simulate the fact, guess what? You don't actually have to be in the classroom to experience a classroom.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it relates to your point of digital catch up, right? They were doing digital catch ups. They were doing cool stuff, the colorful corner, right? We've seen a lot of colorful corners, right? And then suddenly they had to do the real thing. And when they did the real thing, they found out how cool, how interesting, how powerful, Bia, my wife, she used to do an event of 1,500 people yearly, the UPIC Summit. This year, she was just telling me the numbers. She did it remotely from here, from this room here in Ilhabela, with a lot of people around the world, obviously, for almost 50,000 people.
Wow.
And basically the same revenue and a lot less costs. So more profits. But the most important thing is not around the business. It's around the powerful, the power behind it. 1,500 people in Sao Paulo, 50,000 people around the world.
It's a no-brainer.
It's
right?
a no-brainer. It's
Totally.
the power that you have to influence, to teach people, to make them live better, to become better entrepreneurs. It's so much powerful. Why go back to those 1,500 people in Sao Paulo, right? So that doesn't make any sense, right?
No, totally.
So lots of companies, and you were mentioning educational. I think there are lots of companies that understood how powerful these tools are, and obviously, for those that are just pretending to teach or pretending to learn, they are out. They're out. Either students or teachers that they were in the pretending business before, they will be out. There's no pretending online, right? So if I don't want to have my presence with you here, I can just look at my iPad and pretend I'm listening to you. That's no connection. But in the other hand, if I have a real connection with you here, empathy happens. Probably more powerful than before, because we have this time. It's very important. We're not going to have other time, right? So we're using the attention of people that are watching us. It's got to be intense. It's got to be real, right? It's not just another event. It's more powerful than before. So
it's so right. And look, we've had David Meerman Scott did this whole exercise that said, like, right now we're about 4 feet apart. So we are in what's called this personal space. We're about as close, from an intimacy standpoint, even a physical standpoint, and so are everybody watching is as close to us as we are to another. By the way, Michelle Stearns said she loves this idea that companies are concepts, and by the same token, right, brands are also symbols or just mirrors or reflections of those concepts. So the word is real, and I think that segues into kind of combine two of these ideas, because you actually are walking this. You said, first of all, this idea of helping is the new selling. That with all of this anxiety and fear and uncertainty, there is only one path, and that is to be good to others, to pay it forward, to help. And I think if you combine that with another thing that was on your mind, which is the power of listening, right? In a moment where, of course, all these brands and companies are talking too much, we need to listen more. And I'll just kind of use that to set up an initiative that you started, because I think it demonstrates the man that you are and what you're doing about it.
Yeah. I think we're living in such an uncertainty moment that searching for answers and to understand what is next, what will come next. I always see those things like the new normal, the new this, or the new that. But I think, to be really brutally honest, no one knows. That's the brutal reality. So if you're living in such an uncertain moment, I think for me, the best thing is that you can have is like, help someone. Doesn't matter the size, doesn't matter if it's money or time or your ears. And I started with a friend this project called Heart and Mind and You, that is, just opening our time free of charge. There's no business behind it, to listen to people that need to talk. And so I'm combining two things. This is a non-profit initiative that I started with a friend, Mauricio Curi, and we having just a blast in opening our time for people that need to talk. And when they talk, they listen to themselves, and that's so powerful. Sometimes, when the person explains, and the invitation is that he or she has some time to explain his or her doubts or her points or her problems or her issues. And most of the times when these people heard what he or she just explained, the answers are basically there. It's the power of self-listening, because we don't listen to ourselves also too much. We talk, and we don't listen to our heart. We don't listen to what our emotions are saying. We don't listen that much to what our heart is saying. We pay attention too much on our mind, and we organize and we structure the thinking, and we keep thinking, and we rationalize everything. But at the end of the day, we're much more into sentiments than rationality. And we need to listen more to our sentiments. We need to listen more to our emotions, to what we're feeling, because those are the things that really tell the truth inside us.
I think that was so beautiful what you said. Honestly, it was magnificent to hear. And, it also helped crystallize this idea of, as you said, when you talk, you listen to yourself. So many thoughts have come through with guests on the show about silence and pauses and the art of listening and asking questions. But I loved how you tied the idea that when you talk and you can articulate, verbalize, express yourself by hearing your sounds and your words, it is a self-listening device.
And we had done an experience that on Heart and Mind and You. We've done once every 2 weeks, we do a live where we bring someone with my partner Mauricio there, and the person explains their problem, their issue, their question, whatever, live, open on the internet, right? So, and that became so powerful, because being live, being open to the world, give everyone, us, Mauricio and I, and the person invited, much more responsibility, because we bullshit about ourselves a lot also, right? But publicly, a little bit less, right? So, and we amplify our problems or our issues. We complicate way too much our own things. So when this person that is invited is explaining the issue, we've seen it. Sometimes the person stops for a while, said, "Well, this is not really what I meant. I think I've solved this already. I have a little different point here and there." It's really so powerful, and I think it's it's the power of listening to yourself publicly, right? You just record and play.
Well, even more so, right? Listening to yourself, but listening to yourself publicly, because that makes it even more accountable. All right, so now we get to the quote that you have to guess who said this, right? And I think it's a beautiful way to encapsulate everything we've discussed, but also the final point that we'll discuss, which is all about maybe the corporations or the organizations of the future. So this is your quote: "Blessed are the hearts that can bend, they shall never be broken." A quote that's all about agility, flexibility, the water that goes around the rock, the humanity. Do you know who said that?
I love it, but I don't know.
It's Albert Camus, French philosopher, author, and journalist. I just love that quote, and I think it gets us to the final thing that you wanted to discuss. And maybe this is the answer, right? Maybe this is how companies avoid being built to suck. Because your feeling right now, going back to this, idea, is that if it is true to help someone, if it is true to listen more, if it is true to stop playing digital catch up, if a corporation is nothing more than a concept, well, then truly now is the corporation's duty to serve, not sell. And I think your thought here in terms of how to reinvent the corporation is through this idea of an adhocracy, which my understanding is the opposite of a bureaucracy.
Yeah, it's an evolution of the meritocracy, right? So where the facts of being more collaborative, more flexible, more horizontal means that things go better, smoother, better for the people involved, for the leaders involved, and for the people involved. So it's a concept that I think it's also been an interesting invitation for leaders that were old style command control, right? When they left their people around them in the workplace, right, and everyone at home, so they have to rethink leadership. I received two quotes in two articles today that were very interesting. One is JP Morgan CEO saying productivity went down because of work from home, and the other one was a letter from the Brex founders. It's a credit card for entrepreneurs out of San Francisco, Brazilian founders, but out of San Francisco, saying how incredible this time has been for them. And they are going to be working from anywhere from now on with no necessity to be in the office. So these are contracts of different types of leaderships, different types of systems. So in an adhocracy system, you have to have a lot of system and technology that people understand what they're doing. People can feel their goals, and they understand the true north of the company, and everything is out there, really distributed, open information that decreases the necessity of old style command control leadership, right? So I think it's an interesting concept. I think it applies to company. It applies to families. Definitely. Fathers and mothers will need to rethink the way they are raising. It applies to education. Education is all around power, right? The owner of the content. It was around the owner of of the knowledge, right? So it's not anymore. So it's an interesting concept, and again, I think we're in the tipping point of a lot of changes due to COVID. It was a stop reality check that is inviting us to rethink a lot of things, and leadership is one of those.
I think that's a perfect summary of a wonderful conversation. The shifting sands, the shifting trends, but ultimately a word that brought us together all the way back when is evolution. And, that Charles Darwin quote, remember, it is not the strongest of species that survives, nor the most intelligent, but rather the one that is the most adaptable to change, whether it's changing as a parent, changing as a teacher, changing as a leader of a country, of a company. These are opportunities, as you say, to embrace it versus the JP Morgan approach, which is to lament the short-term pain, which hopefully can birth the long-term gain. Bob, it's been a pleasure catching up with you. These are your books, so you can actually pronounce them rather than me. So tell people about your books, although it's probably not available in English, right?
No, not available in English yet. I wrote 2 books on entrepreneurship. The third could translate into being an entrepreneur is not a joke. And the second one is Entrepreneur is Born. It's kind of a guide for first-time entrepreneurs. So both books I did with a partner, the co-writer, and they are sharing my learnings on being an entrepreneur. I haven't done yet the creativity book that I think
I mean, listen, how could you not be on this show with me right now where we've discussed this, where now you have spoken and listened to yourself publicly. It's out there. You have to write the book on curiosity and creativity, and we are going to hold you accountable to it.
I'll come back here again at Corona TV to launch it.
You better. Well, this has been Bob Wollheim. If you want to find out more about, he's got a couple of day jobs, but now he's got a third day job, which is to write his book. You can actually join us, by the way, in the Zoom after show, which will be live on YouTube, and then also obviously in Zoom. And we're going to be going to that in about 60 seconds or so. But you can follow him on Twitter at Bob Wollheim. You can find out more about his companies at the next .company or www.cint.com. You can connect with him on LinkedIn. Did I leave anything out? And of course, a reminder, Heart Mind You, to make a difference, to listen, to learn, to participate, to share, to help, to serve. So Bob, thanks so much for coming in, and looking forward to continuing the conversation with you in the Zoom after show.
Yep, an honor to be here. Thank you.
Thank you for watching Corona TV with your host, multiple author and global keynote speaker, Joseph Jaffe. Corona TV is the show about hope, positivity, optimism, and if there's time left over, a little bit of marketing. The after show on Zoom starts right now at bit.ly/Corona TV After Show. If you like the show, tell a friend or two. Please subscribe to the show at CoronaTV.show. And if you want to get inside news, previews of upcoming guests, and much more, text Corona TV to 66866 or visit josephjaffe.com/subscribe to sign up for the show's newsletter.
And despite the best ministrations of your wife, you still look ugly.